Thank you all for being here. I know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here learning about, unfortunately, another event that happens too often in our community, and I feel like has been a regular occurrence for us. It seems like every time Clairton is in the news, it's because something bad happens. And our goal is to really change that. I just want to say before I get into my presentation, the reason why we are here tonight is because there was an explosion that took place. We were all over the national media. We had the governor come down here. We had the Chemical Safety Board, ATF, US Steel, all put out these press statements, and then nothing happened. Nothing changed. We had one community meeting, and they just expected us to continue like everything was fine. So when this preliminary report came out, we wanted to make an intentional effort to come down here and make sure that we talked about it. Because if we don't talk about it, then it's not gonna be a priority to the folks that can actually make a change. And I wanna start off by just addressing some things that I heard from the crowd before I jump into my presentation. So, what is being done about the explosion? As far as I know, nothing. I've heard from the community that we want an alert system so that we know, as soon as US Steel knows, that something is wrong and we can get notified. I've heard about residents wanting a siren system. I've heard about residents wanting to get notified via phone, via text, but I've heard nothing about any of those projects being implemented. After the explosion took place, I was a part of the folks that were trying to figure out what happened. I was driving through Clairton, I see a big plume of smoke, I hear a boom, I turn off my radio, what's going on? There's an explosion in at the mill. Everyone is on Facebook trying to figure out what's going on, right? Then we hear on the news, stay in your home. A couple hours later, we're saying everything is fine, right? Very confusing, and then we just move on. From our investigations and what we've been able to find out, there needs to be a huge investment made for us to get the type of alert system that we need. For instance, if we wanted sirens, something that we need to think about is how many communities are a part of that. Unfortunately, Clairton Coke Works is just one of 3 mills that make up one giant machine, okay? So the coke oven gas that's produced here is going to the other facilities being used. It's a constant system, it's a constant cycle. So if we have a siren here, shouldn't folks near Irvin Works, folks near Edgar Thompson, they should all be part of that system. That's great. How many municipalities are here? We have Clairton, Glassport, Braddock, East Pittsburgh, North Braddock. How many of those communities do we have to bring to the table? How much funding do we have to raise to get the hardware? Who's gonna organize the community to bring them to the table to make sure everyone's informed? Well, as far as I know, none. The Clean Air Fund should be for these types of incidents, but unfortunately that money is not being put to something like this. And one of the things that we want to do is to build that system, but unfortunately it's going to be expensive and it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take all of us advocating for ourselves, because the powers that be will only show up when there's another emergency. When someone else dies at that plant, unfortunately, if there's another fire or breakdown, then they'll show up and they'll act like they care. So I just want to say, if we want to see something change, then it's gonna have to be from us. It's gonna have to come out of the community, and we're gonna have to advocate for ourselves. One of the reasons why VCAN exists is because we were fed up residents back in 2019 when there was a fire that took place. A lot of us got sick, and there was no resources, nothing we could do to help ourselves. And there was one of our members that went in his pocket and bought some air purifiers. And we decided, okay, we need to continue to do this and advocate for ourselves. but the work is not finished. We have to wake up every day and know that we're gonna do our best and be comfortable with the fact that it won't be enough because we're 100 years behind the 8 ball. If you look behind me, the city of Clairton's seal doesn't have the city, it has the mill on it. Because the mill was here first. And the people came here, and that relationship has never changed. They see us as subservient to the mill, as second to economic priorities. And what we're here to do is advocate that this needs to change. So, I'm gonna briefly go through this and talk about what's in the air, why we care, what we're doing about it, and why all of these things are important to help us deal with things like the Clairton explosion. It was a tragic event that took place, but we have to live with this toxic pollution in our lungs and in our homes every day, right? So it's constant for us. We know that PM 2.5 is a huge problem. It damages our respiratory health. And then we have another category of toxins called VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. So that includes sulfur dioxide, okay? It comes from the coal, it harms our lungs, it creates acid rain. If you go outside and you look at a leaf and you see all the black spots on it, that's from the acid rain, okay? It's not supposed to be there. Once you see it, you'll never unsee it. We have nitrogen dioxide. So it damages your lungs, and it creates the ozone, which makes it foggy outside. We have ammonia. It's that rotten egg smell that we smell often. We have hydrogen sulfide. So these are all very toxic odors. There's about 34 other chemicals that I can name. But we are doing our best to try to talk about these and why they're dangerous. But it is something that we need to be aware of. And the reason why we want to continue to talk about this is because every 2 years, around 1,300 people in Allegheny County die from air pollution. And I feel like that is unacceptable. I feel like that should not be the norm, and that burden is not equally shared. In communities where there are more minorities that live there, the rates are almost 18% higher. And even though things have improved, it is not enough. And we cannot let up the gas to try and create this change. So one of the things that we're known for, one of the things that we've done a lot of work on is our air purifier program. So since 2019, we've passed over 1,200 air purifiers to residents in the Mon Valley, from Clairton all the way up to East Pittsburgh, and we're gonna try to continue that work. But that money is not guaranteed. It came from a settlement fund, and when that money goes away, it's gone. And what's important for us to do is to try to document why we need these resources, to share our voices so that we can try to continue to advocate for ourselves. We were lucky enough to receive some funding from the Mon Valley Clean Air Fund, but we all know that this isn't the only clean air fund that we have access to. We all know that there was a settlement in 2019 where millions of dollars were spent that would have definitely paid for the system that we need here, but now that money is gone. So it's just all the more important for us to continue to talk about this. One of the other things that we do is we do community air monitoring. The problem with the situation that we're in is things were so much worse. We have an older generation that still remembers needing to change their shirt and clean their car every day, and having no foliage outside, right? But the thing that's hard to conceptualize is that the pollution is still there, it's just got smaller, right? So you can't see it, and that's what makes it all the more dangerous. And the companies will try to gaslight us and say that nothing is wrong, and it's cloudy and it's sunny, and oh, you just smell it, it's just an episodic rule, it's just, brief here and there, but we know that it's out there and we know that it's affecting people. So one of the things that we're doing is we're working with the EPA to try to study the pollution to figure out where we're seeing these high spikes, and a chemical that's benzene, known as benzene. And 99% of the benzene that's emitted in this county comes from Clairton Coke Works. We know this causes anemia, cancer, birth defects, and it is not something that was regulated by the federal government where they say, okay, this is a limit on how much is able to be put out. And we've noticed when we've done our own studies that there are spikes in incidences of that chemical. But how can you track something that you can't see, right? How can you track something that depends on the distance of the wind and the humidity that's in that sky? So we had to raise some money to do some monitoring. And right now, we're halfway through our project. So from the findings that we have, all 8 of our sites have been flagged for exceeding the PM 2.5 standard for unsensitive groups. And out of the 11 samples that we've taken so far, 10 of them have contained benzene inside of them. Preliminary, what we think is happening is when some of this gas is flared off at Edgar Thompson that comes from the Coke Works, technically it's pollution control equipment, but we do see spikes at that time. It's not an exact science. Even if we finish the study, it won't meet the regulatory standard, but it will allow us to better protect ourselves and to figure out what's actually making us sick because there's so many chemicals out there. So we worked with EIP, the Breathe Project, and CMU Create Lab since 2019 to try to track and get a handle on how much benzene is being released in the community. One of the things that we wanted to do is get monitors at the Coke Work facility, because one of the problems is we are reliant on US Steel telling us whenever they did something wrong before we know, right? So we need our own monitors there, and we need to have access to that data. We do not need to be waiting on US Steel to tell us when something is wrong and how long they're gonna take to fix it. That has to come from us. So we've been trying to get fence line monitoring, not just so that we can say you're releasing too much benzene, just for us to see how much is actually in the community. So it's very important. I know a lot of folks in this room were involved in testifying to the EPA. We did get the rule put in place, but unfortunately Trump put a 2-year pass, and it's now in court where we're trying to see if we can actually get it implemented. And just to talk about and try to conceptualize how much it would cost to do fence line monitoring. Can I show of hands, anybody been to a Steelers game here, seen the stadium? You know how big it is. Okay, so if we think about all the stadium seats in Heinz Field as the profits for US Steel that they make in a year, the amount of money that it would cost for them to install this would be the cost of 8 seats. So that's 1/100th of 1% of their profits. Just $107,000. We're talking about one employee's salary, one mid-level employee's salary per facility. So it's not a lot of money. We know that if they make $895 million profit, right? This is, what they take off the top after they pay expenses, then they can afford to make these changes. So one of the things that we're trying to do in order to combat this is we're trying to get ourselves organized. A lot of these audacious goals that we have to create a siren system, organize 12 communities to move in one direction, to have a proper evacuation plan for all the municipal governments, to make sure new residents are getting that information when they move in, to have more transparency between the information that's being collected by US Steel, share it with the health department, and share it with us. How do we organize that, right? So we have a resident leadership program where we're giving away $500 stipends for this year. We're gonna, try to raise more money to make that go up. But we meet at least, at a minimum, quarterly, and we work on different things like communications, fundraising, research, legal action, and then finding more members. The main work that takes place in these committees is gonna be something like this monitoring system, right? Because we have to go and raise the money for that. We have to go approach Clairton, Braddock, East Pittsburgh, and find grants, advocate for ourselves to go and raise that funding to get these projects out off the ground. Another thing that we're trying to do, since we have new ownership, that Nippon is now, owns U.S. Steel, we're trying to get a community benefit ordinance passed, right? It would create a process for us to talk with the owners of the plant and not have to go through our elected representatives or favorites that they could pick out that kind of control our access to be able to advocate for ourselves. So these are projects that we're working on right now that you won't see us talking about because we don't necessarily have the money to implement them, but we're actively always looking to raise funding. I think it's also important, if you have an idea for something that needs to change, or you have an idea for something that would improve the town, I think it's important that you could talk to us because we want to be a partner in trying to make that happen. I like to think of as VCAN as a community asset. So we keep, clean books. We get audited. We show where every penny and every dime goes, but we want to make sure that it's able to be used for what the community needs and what's most important. And so we hope that the more people that we have in this program, the more information that we can collect, and hopefully you guys can lead us on the right path to making some long-lasting change. The other thing that we're trying to do is gather resident stories. I know we are all frustrated with what goes on here. And what I would like to do is document that. I want to be able to, when I go to a foundation, if I'm talking to the news, to send them to the website and go look at all the long list of people that have problems. And I want them to be able to hear from you directly about what's going on. I don't want us to have to say anything. I don't want to have to say anything. I want to say, go listen to the residents of Clairton, and this is what they say is a priority. And this is the data that backs it up so that we can get these resources. So we have Seth over here. You raise your hand for me. He will be here collecting stories. If you get an interview from him tonight or schedule one, you will get a $20 gift card. So you may have the possibility of leaving here with some money in your pocket. The other thing that we're doing is a community health survey. And so we're working with the University of Pittsburgh, and what we're trying to do is figure out how sick is our community. If you live closer to these plants, do you suffer from more illnesses? Yes or no? We know the answer is yes, but we want to quantify exactly what are those illnesses and just be able to show that there's a bigger problem so that we can bring more resources to help us out. I absolutely know that is a fact, 100%, and an unfortunate reality. So it's only 10 to 20 minutes. It's in person, by phone, or online. You can schedule at another time. You don't have to do it today. You can do it today if you want to. And it's open to residents of Clairton, Glassport, Liberty, Lincoln, Portview, Braddock, Duquesne, Hazelwood, and West Mifflin.